Welcome, everyone, to the Chicago Football Connection podcast. I'm your host, Steve Letizia. Follow me on Twitter at SteveCBears, joined by my co-host, Luke O'Grady. Follow him on Twitter at Luke O'Grady. We are 23 hours, I believe, away from the NFL draft now.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that, if I'm doing my math correct.
Twas the night before draft night.
Yes, and we were kind of talking about this earlier. You know, I've been studying draft guys since like week 4. I feel completely unprepared for this, but rumors are swirling now. So we had the Ian Cunningham presser yesterday where he didn't give a whole lot, but we'll talk about that a little bit. Yep. We had just rumors flying around Twitter all day last couple months, really. So we don't want to get into all that, but you know, one day before, Luke, how are you feeling? Are you nervous? Are you excited? What's the general headspace you're in right now?
I'm excited. Definitely excited. Poles gets his first chance at a first-round pick. We'll get to see a little bit of the what we can expect to see him do with these premium picks and who he'll target, you know, going forward. I think his first draft proved to be it had its goods and its bads. But based on the things that he said and what we've seen all year, I think that it looks like he's gonna be prioritizing the trenches here in the first day. From what everybody said for a couple of weeks now is that if Poles can, he'd like to trade down to accumulate more picks. So if the cards fall in the way that they will, I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. And I honestly would love if that happened, because I think that the way the board falls, especially where you trade back to, there's a lot of really interesting situations that could happen for the Bears if they trade back.
Yeah, a lot going on. Yeah, you know, I think most Bears fans, every Bears fan, would say they want to see the trenches solidified here. Like, you know, it's difficult to peg them because, you know, they didn't have a first round pick last year, so this is really you couldn't gauge a lot from them. So but yeah, I think you know, offensive line, defensive line is definitely the direction most fans want them to go. I think we want them to go, but they've been very secretive in it. He seems like the reports that have been coming out today and yesterday have been all over the place. You know, it seems like every hour there's a new player who's at the top of their board that they need to get. But so let's start with the Ian Cunningham presser. So there were a couple takeaways that I had from it, at least. First one, I don't know if this is anything new because Ryan Poles kind of said this at the combine presser or after the trade, I believe it was. But they have 6 to 8 players at the top of their board.
Yep.
So we've kind of talked about who those players might be. I don't think much has changed there. But interestingly, they did not rule out Bijan Robinson at all. So if we didn't include Bijan Robinson in our 6 to 8 players last time, I would say he's probably in that 6 to 8 players at this point. I'm not saying he's going to be the pick or anything like that, but I think you have to confidently say that he's on their board pretty high. And there's a possibility, at least, that the Bears go running back in round 1, even if it's not probable.
What do you think about that, Steve?
I hate it. I love Bijan Robinson as a player. Like, he's so electric. If they did draft him, I would be very upset for a while, but I would get over it because I just watched Bijan Robinson highlights and I would talk myself into it.
I know.
Because he's just such an electric player and he would definitely help the offense, but it's just the value does not line up. You know, we've seen other teams take first-round running backs, especially top 10 running backs, and it really hasn't translated to on-field success. Those running backs have been successful in their own right, but those teams have not been successful because that's not a proper way to build a team. And, you know, it's running backs, the whole aspect of running backs don't matter is mostly because its rushing stats are dependent more on offensive line than anything, and the Bears have so many holes on their offensive line, so a running back doesn't do much for me.
I mean, I think if the Bears stay at 9 and draft Bijan Robinson, I'd be pretty disappointed. If there's a situation where they trade into the later 20s, for example,
I could get more behind that if that's the case.
I could get behind it, I suppose. Even then, it would kind of it would be a misplayment, I think, of the situation that they're in. Like the way it is, especially with how much flair has been about certain quarterbacks moving up into that, you know, the top 10 range and getting popular again. Maybe like all the stuff that we'd seen about Stroud is kind of burning away a little bit now. The S2 guys even came out and said that they didn't believe that the scores everyone was seeing were actually the correct scores. They also hinted that someone whose score was very, very low that was shown, which you have to assume is Stroud's, basically, because I don't know who else they would have considered really, really low. I think maybe there was Hendon Hooker or something in the 70s. But his was
Right.
shown to be 18, and they said that one of the players that they tested came in and showed up late to the testing just because of their travel situation. And they tested pretty poorly and then tested again and tested way better. And it might be that some people are seeing an earlier number. But either way,
Yeah.
Stroud's getting a lot of hype. Levis is getting a lot of last minute hype. I heard today Ben Solak say that there's no way that he thinks Levis gets out of the top 4, and he said that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's probably dialed into some circles in the know that the Colts are absolutely in love with him, and maybe the Colts are playing the game. But if you believe that, and if you believe some of the rumors that you've heard about Paris Johnson and Devin Witherspoon in the last little bit, there's going to be probably 7 or 8 picks that you could confidently think will be off the board before the Bears, which starts to make it a little bit clearer who will be available before them at 9.
Yeah, it's that time of the year or time of the off season where how much can you really trust kind of the rumors that are floating around out there? So CJ Stroud, I think, is a good example. Is CJ Stroud actually dropping, or is information getting leaked because some team who drafts, like the Titans really like him and they want him to fall a little bit, something like that. So it does seem to me like in these years you have the combine, and like at the combine and stuff, there are a lot of like rumors and stuff. And then I think you get really into smokescreen season. And then like a day or two before the draft, you start to get some actual.
Yeah,
that seems to what usually happens. So there probably is some true rumors that are floating out there. There also is definitely false rumors or smoke screens floating around there. So you have to kind of sift through all that. I think a big rumor, obviously we have to talk about the quarterbacks because that's where the draft starts with every team, and who's going to be there for the Bears is very dependent on those quarterbacks, even if the Bears aren't going to be interested in those quarterbacks. But another rumor that you kind of alluded to was the Paris Johnson rumor, where the Cardinals really love Paris Johnson at 3. Obviously, he's been connected to the Bears a lot at 9. Bears, we have no reason to believe that they wouldn't like him because he fits perfectly. Yeah. But that would be a game changer if they take Paris Johnson at 3. That kind of changes everything. Any mocks anyone's been doing over the last couple months. So that'll be interesting to see how high he goes.
Yeah, that's one of the ones in the last few days. It's really like only starting maybe Tuesday morning that it was kind of Breer did a piece where he said, don't be surprised, the Cardinals really love Paris Johnson. Mm-hmm. And then a couple of other people came out and made it seem like they had some insider information that was like echoing the same thing. So of the last second rumors, that seems to be one that has gotten the most legs. And like as far as signal, it's come up the most. And if he's the first offensive lineman off the board, the board could fall really differently, especially if Arizona doesn't say, hey, like, does anybody want this pick for a quarterback? If the Texans really don't want a quarterback and they take a Tyree Wilson or a Will Anderson, that's been some other lake smoke is that Tyree Wilson's odds are now number 1 to be the first non-quarterback taken in this draft, which is its own thing. I think we were talking about Tyree Wilson last night, and I like Tyree Wilson, but not as the second overall pick in the draft. It would feel
not over Will Anderson either. That's a big thing.
So either way, if the Texans don't take a quarterback, you were looking at that Arizona spot as that place where the second big quarterback domino is likely going to fall. And if they just say, hey, we want to take someone that's a blue chip player on our board and sit back, then the Colts can have their choice of Stroud, Levis, or Richardson, and everything behind that is a crapshoot. Every one of those teams behind that, the Lions, the Raiders, the Falcons, the Seahawks could all take quarterbacks or could all go best player available. They could all also be willing to trade that because 2 of the spots have 2 picks, the Seahawks and the Lions. And if the Raiders and the Falcons decide they don't want a quarterback but realize that spot could be used for a quarterback, they could get that premium to move back somewhere and build their roster out. So
go ahead.
I was going to say, it's just funny that now that we're closer and we feel like we have an idea of how things are going to play out, it doesn't feel any less likely that we know like what the board will look like when the Bears get there. You may be able to build a model of 4 or 5 people that might be there, But there's no guarantees right now. It's gonna be such a fun draft night, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. Like I was just gonna say the same thing. Like it seems like the more information that comes out, the less we know of who's gonna be there with the Bears pick. Like it's so crazy. It can go so many different directions, and I think you just gotta have. I mean, you gotta do what the Bears are doing. They have 6 to 8 guys that they like, and they'll take the best player who's there. The other thing that came out of the Cunningham presser that I thought was interesting. I'm not sure how much we want to talk about it or not, but he did mention that they don't have round grades on their players. They just have like a big board, which I thought was interesting. Not sure how much that really affects things. But I did think that was interesting from a team building perspective.
I think I like that. Like I think to some extent, you just stick to the board. You don't want to like kind of get caught up on. Now we're in a spot where it's like, this player, we like him, but he's not like, we don't have the round grade on him here. And it's like, if you just eliminate like that kind of verbology, it's like, is there anyone else on your board that you like more? No, perfect. Take.
Yeah, that's true. That's it simplifies things.
Yeah,
I think it probably makes it harder to compare year to year, but I'm not sure how much they really need to do that. But from just like the actual draft that's happening right now, it does seem to kind of simplify things and just say, hey, we're just going to take the best player on our board. We're not going to overthink things.
They could also have some kind of letter and number grade that goes along with it.
They could. Yeah, they had like that athletic score or whatever it was.
Yeah, their analytics score.
Analytics score. That was what it was.
But like it feels like most years, like you look at like mock drafts and like top 10s and stuff, and there'll be like a handful of teams, like 5 or 6, where they get mocked the same person every time, and it's like the board is almost always going to fall this way. And to be honest, the last month and a half, 80% of those mocks for the Bears were Paris Johnson. If he's there, Bears will take him. It's the best tackle on the board. The Bears, yada yada yada. And now, like, it's been a huge shakeup for the Bears, and there are so many players that I think would be a lot of fun at 9. If the Bears do trade down, that would probably be my preference, because then it's honestly more fun. The board gets to fall out a little more. You may have someone that you think is great, like a Miles Murphy or like a JSN, fall to you later in the teens, something like that. But even then, man, like, there's a handful of guys I would love at that spot. There's a handful of guys that I would hate at that spot, but I would force myself to love. It's good. Like, it's going to be such a fun and exciting night tomorrow night.
Definitely. So I don't know if you saw this. I'm kind of hoping you didn't see this because it just came out like 45 minutes ago.
Perfect.
Okay. Well, Daniel Jeremiah released his final mock. And Daniel Jeremiah is pretty. I think he's dialed in. Like, he definitely has some NFL GMs on speed dial.
NFL draft scout. Like, he's the guy.
Right.
The last couple of years.
So I mean, he's obviously not going to get everything 100%, but I think we could use his mock as kind of things that he's hearing at least. So I'm just gonna go down the list. So Bryce Young, you got it. Good job. Now Houston Texans CJ Stroud at 2.
Okay.
Now this is where it gets interesting. At 3, he has Will Anderson going to the Houston Texans. So he has the Texans trading from 12 to 3, so they get CJ Stroud and Will Anderson, which would be crazy. That would lose it. 4 Will Levis. That's pretty chalk. Everyone's been seeing that. Jalen Carter to the Seahawks. That's a popular pick. I know. Devin Witherspoon to the Lions. Yep. Witherspoon. I forget who said it today, but it seems like he's going to be the first cornerback off the board. But he does have Christian Gonzalez then to the Raiders. So cornerback. Bijan Robinson to the Falcons.
Yeah, if I do a mock, that'll be where I put it. There's been a lot of there too.
So can you kind of guess who do you think he has the Bears picking then?
Paris Johnson.
Tyree Wilson. I know. I know a lot of people like Tyree Wilson. I'm a little bit higher on Tyree Wilson than Luke is, but I'm still not. I still wouldn't pick him at 9. I think there are better defensive ends you can take here.
He's an upside guy, and the thing is like, how much productivity are you willing to forego for the body and the frame that you're getting with Tyree Wilson? And for me, it's less. I understand like an upside pick for sure, but with Skoronski and Paris Johnson on the board, I'd be smiling through tears tomorrow night if you took Tyree Wilson there. But it would be interesting to see him fall that far. You might even be able to.
It's possible,
find someone to trade up into that spot. I think honestly, probably like the early 10s and into the late teens is where I think the value for Tyree Wilson makes sense. So, if we get him at 9, I was imagining there was a part of me that really thought the Bears were going to consider taking him at 1 when we had that first overall pick. So I could find my way into like understanding the Tyree Wilson pick. His tape really is exciting. He does look like a man amongst boys against good competition. But, I just think, especially how much we've talked about the offensive line is your best opportunity to evaluate Justin Fields and almost like the team as a whole this year and just good team building. I'd love to see an offensive lineman taken with that pick.
Yeah, I would too, especially with how the board played out. And Tyree Wilson is like a guy that I really liked at first, but the more you watch him, the more you just kind of notice things here and there. You're just like, ooh, I don't know. So yeah, he's an upside play. If you're drafting him, you're not really expecting much this year. You're expecting stuff in year 2. But I don't know. I just feel like with Tyree Wilson, I kind of mentioned this yesterday, and I used Zach Harrison as maybe that's not a good example, but what does Tyree Wilson really do that much better than a guy like Zach Harrison,
or
Isaiah
like
McGuire?
The next tier below.
The next tier, yeah. Felix and Duke Uzuma, those guys. Does he really do those things that much better than that guy is? I think he's better than all those players, but does he do it so much better that he's worth a top 10 pick?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I heard someone say I feel like we've done this with like arm length and things like that all off season, but like the joke, the sex joke is 2 inches really that much? Is it actually what's going to make you draft like a Tyree Wilson over someone like you said? Like, I mean, technically Zach Harrison has longer arms, but but some of the guys behind them have a Foskey, like not a guy I would take anywhere near as high as people are talking about taking Wilson, but they have a whole collegiate career of better production than Tyree Wilson. Is that 2 inches that he has enough to forego everything else below that? I know that the tape is good, but it's like, I don't know. It's
I mean that's kind of why I use Zach Harrison as an example, because the reason people love Tyree Wilson is because he's so long and because he's so athletic and so big. So and like it's not so much the tape; it's like the potential you see with that length and that size. But Zach Harrison is longer and bigger and more athletic.
Yep.
So if you maybe he doesn't have the bend that Tyree Wilson has. I'll give him that, but he has all those traits for him too. So if I can get Zach Wilson in round 3, I don't really want Tyree Wilson in the top 10.
Yeah, I mean, it remains to be seen. It's most of we go back to the signal thing. Most of what we've heard from Bears land and people that maybe have an ear to the ground have said that the Bears are really looking at the offensive line class really closely in this, and that they're kind of building their board around how the offensive line falls out to them when they're at that pick. So if they take a Tyree Wilson there, it might be them thinking, hey, like when we come around, we might have a chance. But if they don't take an offensive lineman at 9, their next pick is what, 53?
53.
You can't expect any of the top 4 offensive linemen to be there, even if none of them have been taken by the time you pick. So, from my point of view, I would say it's either Johnson or Skoronski.
Yeah, or I'd put Wright in there too. I think he's been connected to them as well. But yeah, those three guys, and see offensive tackle is a position where historically most of the good offensive tackles are first round draft picks. Like you don't see a lot of late round draft picks to turn into like top 10 tackles. Yeah, you get guys who might be serviceable, and Charles Leno was a 7th round pick. He was a serviceable tackle. Braxton Jones was a 5th round pick. He was serviceable his first year. But if you're looking at the top 10 guys at offensive tackles, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2, they're all first round picks.
Yeah, no, a gross.
So if you want to get that franchise left tackle or right tackle, depending on who you pick, and you almost have to do it in the first round. And to be honest, I don't really love any of the second round tackles very much, especially late second round. Maybe Matt Bergeron gets there. I think he's really the only one who I would be okay with, but it's possible he goes before then too. So then you're looking at, like a Jalen Duncan or a Blake Freeland there, and I don't like that value at all. So to me, it just makes so much sense to go offensive tackle in the first round. Paris Johnson, Darnell Wright, Skoronski, if you have him at tackle. I mean, I don't have him at tackle, but if the Bears picked Peter Skoronski, I'd be fine with that. I'd be fine with playing him at tackle too, because he's infinitely better than Larry Borom would be. So there's that. So there's those 3 guys. Maybe if you trade back, you can maybe do Anton Harrison, Broderick Jones. I don't know, something like that. But It just makes all the sense in the world to go offensive tackle.
Yeah, no, it's funny, like the way that the Bears picks are set up, like, you'll very likely have like a pick at one of the best offensive tackles on the board at that 9 spot, if not the first tackle off the board, depending on how the Paris Johnson stuff plays out, or Peter Skronsky as well. But if they wait to take their next tackle, they could be 7 tackles deep before they pick again. Like you might not even have a chance at a DeJuan Jones.
Right. No, I don't think you would. I think DeJuan Jones is going to go before 53. So yeah, you're looking at 6th, 7th tackle, and you're going to be expecting that guy to come in and play week 1. That's a lot to ask. Maybe I don't know. Maybe if you trade down from 9 and get the 32nd or early 2nd round pick, let's say, that maybe makes it a little bit easier to pill to swallow, because maybe Anton Harrison falls or something. Otherwise, you could do Bergeron, DeJuan Jones.
Yep.
Someone like that. But yeah, that would scare me if they don't trade down and offensive tackle isn't their first pick. But there has been a lot of smoke in other places too. We got one guy, I'm Scox here, says there's a lot of smoke with Nolan Smith at 9, which he says not sure I love that. I actually do love that. I like Nolan Smith a lot. I watched him even more today because after the report came out, I was like, I just want to take one more look at him, and I still liked him a lot.
Yeah.
9, I don't know, maybe a little bit rich, but maybe that's more of a trade back target potentially if they're looking at him. But I think I know he's undersized. He's 240, but the way he plays with a lot more power than you'd expect a guy with 240 to play. And with the bend he has, there aren't a lot of bendy edge rushers in this class. It's a lot of power rushers. Miles Murphy, Lucas Van Ness, even Will Anderson, are all Tyree Wilson, Isaiah McGuire, Zach Harrison, all those guys, power rushers. Nolan Smith is one of those few bendy guys. Will McDonald maybe would be another guy like that too. But there's only a couple of those like real bendy pass rushers in this draft class.
Nolan Smith, I think both of us had him as a top 5 pass rusher in this class. I think we both had him above Tyree Wilson.
I had him at 2. Tyree Wilson at 3, I think.
I think I went Will Anderson. Honestly, I might have had Tyree Wilson at 2.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember.
But
you had Nolan Smith high too.
I had Nolan Smith at 2, and I had Tyree Wilson at 5. That's what I meant to say. Sorry, but
that's right. You did have Tyree Wilson at 5.
He really would be like a spark plug. He'd be like, he would instantly be the best pass rusher on the team, and like a freak athlete pass rusher. And like we've said, he really, like, there are concerns because of his size about how he can play the run. You don't need to be concerned about how he can play the run. The guy's one of the better run defenders in the class at edge.
Yes. Yeah, I just looked it up. So you had Nolan Smith at 3, Miles Murphy at 2. But yeah, we both had him as top 3 guys. But yeah, I think what that pick would signify is they would really be kind of a shift in what the Bears might want to do next year defensively.
Yeah.
Kind of more, maybe run more multiple fronts, be more creative, not just I think that would be a welcome change from any Bears fans watching. Getting a guy who can give you some flexibility and not just be so rigid in here. And I think, honestly, that would make sense given kind of the other defensive ends that they signed. DeMarcus Walker and Rasheem Green, who are bigger guys, 280 pound, 260, 270, 280. That's almost, and if you drafted a guy like Nolan Smith, 240, it's like, okay, maybe you're going to be running more multiple fronts, or maybe even a three down lineman from time to time. So it would be interesting to kind of what that would signify. But I mean, that Nolan Smith report came from Nolan Smith himself. He said that the Bears have showed the most interest in him. So I don't think that's a smokescreen. I think that's a legit interest.
And it could be that, maybe a lot of these teams have met with Nolan and said, like, cool, like, we'll be talking on draft night if the stars align, and maybe the Bears checked him a couple times. So maybe it didn't take a whole lot for them to be some of the most, or maybe they're texting him every day, like, hey, kid, we love you. Like, if you're there, we'll see what we can do. But he would be another one where if they could do a trade back, I think his value, honestly, from his talent makes sense at 9. And I think time will tell that, like, if he doesn't get drafted at 9, he probably could have been. But you can probably get him in the later teens. And there's a lot of teams, like, just 3 or 4 picks behind the Bears that, like, make sense for trade targets. Tennessee at 11 is going to come up. We know they're trying to come up. if there are quarterbacks still on the board, we don't really know who their like quarterback of fancy is. Houston at 12 could still come up if they decide to pass on a quarterback there and then decide they want to get a quarterback later.
Mhm.
New England could come up. Apparently, they're
New England,
really enthused with Will Levis if he's still there. Washington could. Pittsburgh could. So,
yeah, I mean,
like all those
go.
like 16, 17, 14, 13, 11, like those could be spots where you draft back and still probably be able to grab like a Darnell Wright or maybe a Paris Johnson or maybe a Nolan Smith. So, at the moment, like unless like a Devin Witherspoon or a Jalen Carter, like for me, if they stay and take Paris Johnson or Darnell Wright at that 9 spot, that's fine. Maybe even Skoronski. But if other than those 2 defensive guys are there, like the rest of my options, like I would love if they could try and like look for that option 5 or 6 picks back.
Yeah, I think my preference would be, Will Anderson first. I don't think he's going to be there, but he'd be my first preference.
Imagine.
Yeah, Jalen Carter, I think, is 2 on my just preferences for the Bears.
Yep.
Darnell Wright, Paris Johnson are the next 2, and then I think after that it's trade down.
Yep.
I think after that I think I'd rather trade down, but I want to get one of those blue chip guys if they're not there, or I mean Darnell Wright will most likely be there at 9. Paris Johnson has a chance to be gone just on the reports, but he could be there too. I think Carter and Anderson are not as likely, but if they trade down, I would be fine with that too, because you could still trade down and potentially get Wright. I'm going to say probably not Paris Smith because I think the Eagles or the Titans right behind him might take Paris Johnson, but you could definitely trade down, maybe get the Wright or maybe one of those corners if one of those corners drops. So yeah, it'll be interesting. But yeah, the teams that trade up, like you said, that if it's a quarterback, the Titans makes sense. Squeegee brought up the Patriots. They might go on to trade up for like a wide receiver potentially, jump the Eagles, jump those teams, jump the Packers who just got in front of them. I mean, we could go on and on about all these different scenarios. We'd be here all night, but it'll be interesting. It's really interesting to kind of see who'll be there. I'm to be honest, I'm kind of over speculating. I just want it to like be here, and
I know.
So we could then start talking about the player who's going to be on the Bears rather than the players who might be on the Bears.
I know. The thing that's really torturous too is that like the real impact that the Bears are going to make is the end of the second, start of the third. They get to add a stretch of like 3 players in that stretch that are probably going to make way more of a first year impact than the 1 player we get in year 1, unless we do have one of those blue chip fall to us. But like the Bears really need to hit home runs in that 2, 3, 4, 5 range, like day 2 and then early into day 3. The Bears have a lot of ammunition and they got to make sure those picks land just as much as this first one does. So you're gonna spend 4 hours watching 30 picks, and you're gonna see the pick is in for each team for 8 minutes before the pick is actually in, and then you'll do the whole thing again for 20 picks the next day before the Bears make their next pick.
Yep,
it's a labor of love.
I was just gonna say it's gonna be fantastic. I'm gonna love every second of it.
I know it'll be good.
Yeah. Anything else from like I feel like I'm missing like a big rumor there that
No, I think that's it for the most part. I was just kind of thinking about the rest of the prospects that I would even spend on that pick. I think me and you disagree. I would love to take just because I think it would be the most fun, and I know that people would almost look at it as irresponsible, but I would love to take Jackson Smith and Jigba there so much, man.
Yeah, I mean I wouldn't hate it. I mean, if that was the pick, I wouldn't hate it at all. I mean, he's a good player. We've talked
you
about
talk yourself right into it.
Oh my god, I'd talk myself
Get
into
a jersey.
anything. So yeah, they could pick a punter at 9, and I would talk myself into it in 2 weeks.
Yeah, you'd be like, "Well, dude, it's hang time."
Dude, this is Mega Punt 2.0. But yeah, Jackson Smith and Jigba. My only problem with that is, I think I would rather trade down and pick like Zay Flowers or Jordan Addison or something.
Yeah,
Jordan Addison picks. Plus, you get a good receiver. But I do. I mean, Jackson Smith and Jigba, it would be pretty sick.
He feels like the only person that's getting any of this like trade up hype. Like Jordan Addison is going to make a lot of people look silly sometime. I think he really is going to be a great pro.
Speaking of the wide receivers, because if we go a little bit farther in Daniel Jeremiah's mock, he is the first wide receiver off the board, not Jackson Smith and Jigba. He is the Tennessee Titans at 11 picking Zay Flowers. And apparently the Patriots are really into Zay Flowers too.
I heard that. I did hear that.
I think Zay Flowers it's possible he's the first wide receiver off the board, or at least goes higher than people think, maybe. At least goes higher than people think.
I tell you what, another reason why there's a part of me that really, really, really wants to draft Jackson Smith and Jigba is because I do not want it to be the Packers. And if he's on the board at 13, there's been so much smoke to the Packers and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Like the Packers writers have said they loved it. Have said like he's a guy that's like really, really high on their board. It seemed like if the Bears didn't take him at 9, there was a really good chance that the Packers were going to take him at 15. And now after this Jets trade, it leaked that the Jets were really hoping to add Jackson Smith and Jig with that 15th pick, which you can only imagine would stimulate the Packers even more at this point. And I really don't see any way that if he's on the board at 13, that he's not taken by the Packers.
It's definitely possible. Like he would definitely be in play. If we're just going off the Jeremiah thing, he is on the board on the Packers pick, and he has them going off to Kincaid. But that doesn't mean anything. I mean, that's just one scenario. Could
you imagine? But it's gonna be so much fun.
I will say, like, I am not that concerned about Jackson Smith and Jigba going to the Packers. If he does, like, I wouldn't be thrilled because I think he's gonna be a really good wide receiver. But I wouldn't be like, oh my god, like this is gonna suck, because I don't think he's a Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, wide receiver. I think he's a you think he's a good wide receiver and going to be good for a long time. But I don't think he's that guy that you're really going to regret your rival having him.
Yeah,
I know it's just like, it would suck, but it wouldn't be the end of the world.
I will say though, I would much rather my rivals get Paris Johnson or Peter Skronsky or Darnell Wright than if they get Jackson Smith and Jigba, because I don't have to see them spiking the ball in the end zone.
Yes, that is true. But yes, I mean, I get exactly what you're saying. That makes complete sense. But man, I don't think you could pass up on a tackle. Like, I would be upset if Paris Johnson Jr. goes to the Packers or something like that, and turns out to be like an all-pro. Yeah, well, it depends on how it turns out, but.
No, I for sure. Darnell Wright would be another one because he's so nasty, man. I feel like he would just like really lean into those rivalry games. But yeah, like it's funny, especially as Bears fans, having taken Mitch Trubisky, you almost always have to think about like the player that you take and how the players that are taken immediately in the wake of it are going to be like valued against it over time. I just cannot live with the next 4 years if we don't take Jackson Smith and Jigba and he goes for 1,400 yards and 11 touchdowns for the Packers every year. If he helps Jordan Love become even an adequate starter in the league, I'll be poisoned.
That's fair. Again, I don't know if he's a 1,400-yard receiver in the NFL, though.
I believe Jackson Smith and
Jigba. I'm not like, again, like, I think that Jackson Smith and Jigba is good. I just don't know if he's that level of good.
Yeah.
Jeremiah has him going 19 to the Buccaneers, which I could live with. That's fine. The Buccaneers can have him.
Yeah, totally.
He also has Anthony Richardson going 20th.
Yeah, I saw that,
which is weird. That's not going to happen, right?
And then Seahawks took Carter. I did see a graphic of Daniel Jeremiah saying like these teams got their quarterback and got an elite defender, and it was like the Texans getting Stroud and Anderson and them getting Richardson and Carter, and I was like, is this some kind of like psyop to the future? I didn't know he was like, because he said it like it actually happened. Okay.
The NFL is like leaking their script before draft day.
It'd be interesting to see how much like the rest of the league values Anthony Richardson, because if Levis, Stroud, and Young are gone, the Bears trading down from 9 becomes a lot less valuable. If there's a quarterback on the board that someone wants, there's a way better chance for us to recoup a lot of value.
Right. Yeah, you can still trade down if it's not a quarterback, but
yeah,
where you say you're just not getting as much, but. I have a hard time seeing Anthony Richardson getting out of the top 6, I'd say. With Seattle and Detroit right there, and the Colts, all those. Yeah.
Detroit was smart. I mean, I guess maybe you can look at this and say, hey, they might be able to get him at 18. But I just think that as much as I honestly wouldn't like it, and maybe he would have to get stashed for a year, Detroit seems like the team that could really take him. And if, even if he contributes nothing this year, it wouldn't sink their team. They're still set up to take a big leap this year.
Right. I mean, even like just going all the way down to 20. There are so many QB needy teams, like that could, like the Titans to take them. Hell, the Jets. I know they just traded for Aaron Rodgers, but you get Anthony Richardson for 2 years. Like, that's not a bad idea. Patriots, Commanders, like all these teams could use a quarterback. I don't think he's dropping all the way down to 20.
I don't know. There are probably some people doing like a Buccaneers show right now that like hell the Bears might even take Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, that's so true. Like, yeah, Justin Fields isn't it? Like,
yeah.
Yeah. So, man, it'll be interesting.
Do you want to go over our guys, the ones that that we're banging the table for?
Yep. So we're not going to spend like 2 hours on this like we did for our positional previews, but we figured we'd go kind of position by position, at least the positions that the Bears need.
Yep.
And just kind of talk about our guys. So I kind of tweeted a thread on some of the positions already, but we can go over it. So our guys at positions need what position? You want to start with offensive tackle?
Sure. Our guys like kind of being guys that fit the blend that we're higher on than most, and then maybe you might be able to get like a little bit later, or like not where people are expecting them to go, but really just people that we think we could be right in there with consensus. They could be our favorite player in the draft and other people's favorite player in the draft, but just guys that we think may not be getting a lot of love, or maybe that we're higher on the most.
Sure. I think that's a great way to put it. It's not necessarily the best player in the draft, or even our highest ranked player. It's just something
because it's like our guy at defensive end isn't Will Anderson, but like he's probably not as good as our guy, or like Will Anderson's better than our guy, kind of thing.
All right. You want to kick it off?
Yeah, sure. Offensive tackle. That's actually an easy one for me. I've been a DeJuan Jones guy. I think DeJuan Jones. I've had a first round grade on him since like back in January, and he really only solidified that by going and having what I thought was an awesome combine for him, even though he tested like really, really badly. You got to know that this guy's walking around at 370 pounds, and walking around at 370 pounds differently than any other 370 pounder in the NFL has probably walked around that in our lifetime. Like you said it yesterday. He really is complex. There's very, very few people that have ever looked and like moved like DeJuan Jones at his size. I think that he checks a lot of the boxes for the things that we want our tackle to be good at day one in the NFL. He was a good zone blocker, and he moved well in the zone. He does a really great job of snatching people in lanes, and his pass protection was some of the best in the nation last year. I got a first round grade on him. I don't know if he'll be a first round pick, but that's definitely my guy.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, it's hard to envision him being a bad offensive lineman in the NFL. Like for all the reasons you just mentioned, I think. But yeah, I do think he's complex. Like you're not going to comp him to Orlando Brown because he was more athletic than Orlando Brown. And Orlando, I mean, you're not going to. There was like Daniel Fellow, whatever his name was last year, but he was not nearly as athletic or nearly as good a tape as DeJuan Jones. So yeah, I think he is kind of complex, but I do think it's interesting. Like if he succeeds in the NFL, any offensive tackle who's like real fat and out of shape will be comped to DeJuan Jones, even though it is a terrible comp. It's kind of how every small wide receiver, regardless of how good they are, gets comped to Ty Lockett. Any big fat offensive tackle will be comped to DeJuan Jones, and it won't make any sense. But I think that's like, a good one.
That's like strictly because like on the page it says 374, and people are like, what?
Yeah.
And it's like you got to look at the guy. He's 6'8". He looks like built like he looks like if you took a normal tackle and just stretched him out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good one. My guy at O tackle, if we're just taking one, is Carter Warren. I've been high on Carter Warren for a while. This was, I feel like, an easy one for us because we've both been very vocal about these guys. So Carter Warren, like a day 3 guy. I seriously think if he didn't get injured this year, he's easily a day 2 pick. But I think he's also one of the more pro-ready players in this draft. So you can get a guy, if you don't go offensive tackle in round 1, I'm going to be pounding the table for Carter Warren. Like, take Carter Warren. You can play him year 1. He's not going to kill you. Unlike Jalen Duncan or Blake Freeland, those guys are going to take some time. Like, I'd rather have Carter Warren all day. So that would definitely be my guy at offensive tackle.
Yep.
All right. What position you want to go to? You just want to go to interior then?
Sure.
All right, who you got?
I think that someone same offensive line actually. I've been watching him. I've been watching him a lot more the last couple of days because I honestly was looking at Creed Humphrey film, just being that like this guy translated day 1, and I was watching Creed Humphrey play, and I was like, man, I don't know what is so different between Creed Humphrey and Luke Weipler. And if you look at their RAS scores, they're actually similar, like very, very similar in size. I think they're the same height, like only like 2 or 3 pounds different in weight, and a lot of their movement scores are the same. And I honestly thought that, like, from a tape point of view, in his senior year, playing against some of the best competition in the nation, that Luke Weipler's tape was better than Creed Humphrey's. But like that being said, Creed Humphrey got way more hype going in. Like people were like, this is like one of a very few amount of centers that you take in the first round, and he obviously proved them all right. But in my limited understanding of center play, I don't see that much of a difference between what. And honestly, I thought Luke Weipler's tape was better. So, like, Luke Weipler's my guy at the interior. I think if the Bears take him, like, I think whoever takes him is going to have themselves an awesome starter for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you had him as your center one, which not many people do, but I mean, I had him a little bit lower, but I liked that you had conviction about it. A lot of people, I had John Michael Schmitz, which is like real chalky. Most people do. But yeah, I mean, if Weipler was the pick at 53, 61, 64, like, yeah,
60,
those picks, like,
just center value, 64 probably, but like if the Bears get him on the roster, I'll be over the moon. Yeah, I really actually doing the list was awesome, because whether or not we end up being right over time, like, it's worth having, like, putting down those opinions and building a repertoire of like how you rank people out. And I was willing to stick to my guns with Weipler.
I like it. It's also good because, like, it keeps you in check, and also if one of us is wrong about something, you could use it as a learning experience rather than running away from it and pretending it didn't happen. Interior. So, oh god, this was tough. I actually I don't know if I like love this interior class just from like a top end talent perspective, but there were just a lot of guys that I think like, oh, that guy's gonna be a good player for a long time. So this is a tough one for me to pick just one my guy. But I'll go Braden Daniels from Utah. I have him I had him in my tackle rankings because I think he can play tackle, but he probably will
kick inside.
It's most likely, but I would give him a chance to tackle. But most likely he's going to go to guard or even center. So I'll take Braden Daniels. I just think the way that the violence he plays with his hands and the quick feet and how explosive he is out of his stance and the way he can get to the second level, he can execute reach blocks. But he just uses his hands so well. That's almost why I think he can stick a tackle, because he's so good with his hands and his feet are usually in unison. But man, I have a hard time picturing him not being at least, a solid starter or a solid pro for a long time. Maybe he doesn't make many Pro Bowls or any Pro Bowls, but I just think he's going to be, a solid left guard or center for a team for 6, 8, 10 years. So I really like him. I think he's a perfect fit for the Bears from an athleticism standpoint. And kind of that nasty demeanor that I like in my offensive lineman. Like, I think that's absolutely perfect on day 3, maybe even day 2 if you get a pick in like the late 3rd or something like that.
I took him in my mock today, and he was there in the 5th.
I mean, he's way underrated. I mean, I didn't put together top 100 this year. I wanted to, but just time got away with me, and he would have made my top. He would have made my top 100.
Maybe I sit down and try and bang on it tomorrow morning. I
was debating whether if I want to do like a real mock draft, like a written one, or a top 100. So we'll see what I do tonight.
Maybe you'll have to take a sick day tomorrow.
Maybe. If you saw my workload that I already am wavering me, I could not do that. All right. Let's stick off. Let's do wide receiver.
Wide receiver, my guy. That's good. There are 2 guys that instantly came to mind. One guy that I'm not going to say, but it really should be said, is that we both said it, is that from a tape point of view, Michael Wilson has a chance to be one of the best players in this class if he can keep it together. But in saying that, Jim Nagy did a big threat on him today. I feel like people have kind of heard about Michael Wilson, but I will say that as kind of like in the my guy theme of things, like, it's hard to not love his tape and be excited about what he could be. I could go Jonathan Mingo here, because despite the fact that he's got some late energy, and like people are kind of starting to talk about him, he was still the 17th receiver on the consensus board, and I think he's going to be a stud pro. I had him inside my top 10. But one guy that we talked about early, but it hasn't really been talked about much at all going forward, and it's definitely a my guy for me, is A.T. Perry. Love A.T. Perry. He plays a little small for how big he is, but there aren't very few true X's in this draft, and he is. He can stretch the field. Sometimes he looks like he's moving slow on film, which worried me. But when he went out and tested the way that he did, I think he has like the physical abilities to compete at the next level as well. And if that's the case, like he's got a nose for the football, he's good around the boundary, he can get open deep, he's feisty, like he has what you want from a wide receiver. If he would just go up and use his hands more, he would really be like a Cedric Tillman-esque, like complete package type X wide receiver. But like if you had to, if you miss on Cedric Tillman and still want yourself an X receiver, you can get an A.T. Perry likely in the 3rd or 4th round. And I think some team will be really, really happy with it.
Yeah. Was it you who put the Alshon Jeffrey comp on him?
Yeah.
Or was that someone else? Because I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Something about that's probably
labored for them to run and like.
Yeah. I think that's like the high end.
Yeah.
But I think it's definitely in like the realm of possibilities. But yeah, I mean just like the play style, you can see it for sure. Like it doesn't always look smooth, but he gets the job done.
It looks kind of it's something just about the way that they move is very similar. It's kind of like when you watch Zay Flowers and you can't help but say this is how Antonio Brown kind of used to move. You look at A.T. Perry, you go, there's some Alshon Jeffrey to his game. The problem is that Alshon Jeffrey was amazing at going up and getting the ball.
Right, that's the only difference. But and that's a big one. But
Alshon Jeffrey went early 2nd, and then if A.T. Perry probably makes it out of the 3rd or into the 3rd, he'd be lucky. But I think he's got a lot of skill set, and if he could get taught, because he's got soft hands, he just doesn't have like the want to go up and attack a ball.
Agreed. I think that's a good one though. Man, this was also tough. Like, I mean, if we're being honest, my guy is Zay Flowers, but I'm not going to go with Zay Flowers because the Bears.
I thought you were going to say someone else.
But I think I'm going to say who you think I'm going to say is Jaden Reed. Is that what you're thinking? Yeah. I mean, I talked about Jaden Reed a lot. So, Jaden Reed. I just think I was watching, again, another guy I was watching more of today because it's like I want to make sure that I'm not crazy with this, like because I think I am higher on him that. But I think there's just his body control. He makes contested catches. He can get open. He dominated the Senior Bowl. Like, when you have a guy who can run good routes, he's not the greatest route runner, but he runs good routes. I would definitely say it's a strength of his. He runs good routes, body control, contested catches, and dominated the Senior Bowl like he did.
The Senior Bowl, it was huge.
It's hard to just say like what his weakness is. Now I think he doesn't have a one calling card that sets him apart. So that's his biggest knock is that he just doesn't. He's a jack of all trades, master of none. And that probably limits his upside. Like he's not going to be a number 1 receiver. He might not even be a number 2 receiver, but I think he's going to be a guy you really want as maybe a low end number 2, high end number 3 wide receiver who's going to make some plays for you. So I think, and he's actually a guy who would be in play for the Bears, unlike Zay Flowers. So really like Jaden Reed. And then one more shout out to my guy Jared Wayne, who no one's talking about. I thought I found a sleeper when I found him, but apparently I didn't. I think he was like 83rd on Dane Brugler's wide receiver list, but I still am going to stand by him. He's going to be good.
Yep. What on to next? What do we got? Want to go cornerback?
Corner, sure.
Put my corner. Yeah, let me put my board here. Corner and wide receiver are the most the people I scatter the most. So there's a lot to pick from here. Man, I remember like looking at some of these people for the first time, like in like January, which feels like forever ago.
Yeah. Do you want me to go while you're looking that up?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, my corner is. Wait, I thought I was gonna go with a guy. No, I want to just make sure. Hold on. Yeah, no, I'll go with him. My corner is Darius Rush.
Yeah.
From South Carolina. I didn't really watch him before the Senior Bowl, but he went to the Senior Bowl and absolutely dominated. So I went back and also the combine, he ran like a 4.3 something. So I went back and actually watched him, and man, I think he's going to be really good. I think he's like some of the other guys I mentioned, I thought were going to be like solid players. I think Darius Rush has a chance to be like a lockdown corner or at least a high end cornerback too for a team.
Yep.
Just the way he's able to mirror guys, fluid hips, plays the ball well, turns and finds the ball when the ball's in the air. I really like him. I think, Bears in round 2, that would be a great pick for them. So he's my guy.
Yep. Oh man, it's tough. I love Riley Moss. I feel like Riley Moss has gotten some love and some writing about in the last little bit. So, I mean, I guess a lot of these guys have. To be honest, someone I think that, like, in the last probably 2 weeks has shot up my board is Tyreek Stevenson. Like, I've just gone back and watched more, and then sat with it a little bit, and then like loved what I saw, and then went back and watched more, and then went and like looked at like whatever I could find on Twitter, and like went and watched interviews, and like just the more I do it, like I really do think that this guy, like of the people in the class, we've said before that we think that it's Christian Gonzalez, Devin Witherspoon, and then everyone else, and maybe like Deontay Banks is like kind of in that tier with like Joey Porter and with Cam Smith as well to some extent, but I honestly I really do think that Tyreek Stevenson has a chance to be in that conversation, like in 3 or 4 years, in that conversation with Witherspoon and Gonzalez as some of the best cornerbacks from this class. I really do.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, Tyreek Stevenson was also kind of like on my list of like guys that I really like. So yeah, I think it's such a deep cornerback class. Like there was no wrong answer to that question. You could have like either of us could have said anyone, and I was like, yeah, okay, I like that guy.
And to be honest, my guy has been Devin Witherspoon forever.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you actually we're gonna pick anyone, it would be Devin Witherspoon for sure.
So he's like probably my favorite prospect in this draft.
Yeah, it's boring taking the top guys. So
exactly.
you gotta take some of them lower. All right, you want to go DN?
Yeah, I'm tempted to take another Ohio State guy. I have liked Zach Harrison for a really long time, and honestly, it's like I think he was catching momentum for a little bit. I think I was expecting him to kind of keep steadily moving up to being like kind of almost in the DeJuan Jones range, where he might not go in the first round, but he wasn't going to make it out of the second. He was probably going to go in the first 10 or 15 picks of the second round, and like. It's looking like you can probably still get him in the third. Some like boards have him where you could probably get him in the fourth. I mean, like that feels crazy to me, but there must be something that I'm missing because I think he does a great job backside on runs. I think he can hold the edge and sit on a block and rip free on the front side on runs, and he shows like a lot of like pass rushing prowess for someone that like I think. The thing is with him is the eye test. Is that it doesn't ever look explosive really or flashy. Maybe he doesn't have the bend that you want from some of these guys. And I think that like these teams, when they're evaluating, they really want those fast 3 cones and those fast short shuttles, which I get. But I just think that he's a football player. And like he was in the SEC against all of those 3 cone short shuttle guys. And he was probably one of the best, if not the best pass rushers in the SEC last year, just from a straight like snap to snap basis. So I think some team's gonna grab him and put his 36-inch arms on the outside and just be like so fired up with him year one.
That's a really good one, and I agree with you. I thought he was gonna start like getting some momentum there because he did, but I thought he was gonna keep carrying, and it really did, which is interesting.
It almost fell back off.
Yeah, it did. But yeah, we were talking. It was Tommy Cavanaugh sent us that thing about from PFF, like the top pass rushers in the NFL all had like 85 to 90 pass rush grades in college or something like that. And if you look at this year's class, Zach Harrison had like above an 83 overall pass rush grade for the past like 3 seasons.
His true pass rush grade this year was like 92 playing in the SEC. It's like, what more do you want?
Big Ten. But yeah, no, same thing though. But yeah, it's like, so like I don't, and like you would think because of that the PFF would be super high on him, but they're not. So I don't get it.
No,
and that's
they have him as like the 18th rated. He's like literally the 18th rated edge prospect.
I think we definitely both had him in the top 10, right? I think I had him at like 6 or 7.
I had him. Okay. I had him at 6, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
You might not have had him in there, to be honest with you.
I did.
I think the hate continues.
If I didn't, I want.
Like,
I want
they
to
have like.
But anyway, it doesn't matter.
They have like KJ Henry, Byron Young, and Carl Brooks all ahead of them, and it's like, okay, come on. They have Nick Herbert. Do you have him?
Yeah, I have him at 8.
Okay.
So you had him at 7. I had him at 8. So I was like, I could have sworn if I did include it, it was definitely just like a miss. I just forgot to put him in there. But anyway, okay, that's a good one though. Mine would be Isaiah McGuire. I mean, Harrison would have been in there too, but I like Isaiah McGuire too. Kind of similar player, to be honest. But Isaiah McGuire, played in Missouri in the SEC, went up against some of the best offensive tackles in college football, absolutely dominated Broderick Jones. So if you're a Broderick Jones fan, you should be an Isaiah McGuire fan because he ate his lunch for 60 snaps in that game. He actually dominated him. He dominated other guys too as well. But yeah, I think though he plays with really heavy hands, really good power rusher. Like when he hits the offensive lineman, they get jolted back.
Yep.
I think he's got a little bit better bend than he's given credit for.
Yep.
I mean, some of these other guys like have are power rushers with not a lot of bend. He's never that's never going to be his calling card, but I think he does have some bend ability to turn the corner there. He's got long arms too. They're not Zach Harrison long, but they're I think they were over 34 inches.
Yep, 34.
Got good size, 270 pounds. Like another guy that I think kind of all my theme with all my guys is I don't know if they're ever going to be the best player at the position, but I think they are going to be a solid player for a long time and maybe makes a few Pro Bowls. But that kind of seems to be what Isaiah McGuire has. But yeah, he's getting mocked for day 3 sometimes.
No, I know. It is interesting. It's almost weird. Just like I was saying this to you guys last night. I think that the edge class is the best in this. And it's like if you don't have him as a top 10 edge, like it's like I love Isaiah McGuire. And I could see why there are 10 people whose names you picked before him. Like that's kind of the type of class it is for me. I think it goes Will Anderson and everyone else situation as far as like blue chips. But I would say that if there's like blue chips light or like, just whatever the next step down is, I would say that there's like 10, 12 people in that group. Like there really is a lot of options. It is kind of your flavor. Like, what styles you like, but it's hard to not watch Isaiah McGuire and really like him. He's kind of like BJ Ojulari in that like he's got a really nice and like refined pass rush kid. He's got some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I didn't have him in my top 10.
And I don't think I did either.
Guy. Hey, I had him at 11. But he was definitely in play for that. Like
I probably could have said Will McDonald because Will McDonald I had a list before and he wasn't on your top 10. And he's, he varies on a lot of people's top 10s. But I honestly think that kind of like Tyreek Stevenson in 3 years, like Will McDonald has a chance to be right up there with Will Anderson as and Nolan Smith. I think those guys are like the guys that are going to become the guys from this class. I really do.
Yeah, I already know I'm going to look stupid for not having Will McDonald in my top 10 in a couple of years. I've already come to terms with that, so I'm cool with it. All right, let's do D tackle. Let's finish up there. We got a few more minutes left, so let's do D tackle. I think that's pretty much the biggest needs for the Bears. Yep. We would cover then. So D tackle, do you have someone who jumps out at you?
Right, my list here. You go first.
I definitely have one guy that I absolutely love. It's Keanu Benton from Wisconsin.
That is your guy.
I love Keanu Benton, and I think when I was making my top 100 and I was doing my big board, he had a first-round grade for me, and he was, I believe, 21st on my board or something like that, 22nd, something like that. He was like the last first-round grade that I had. Another this is a guy who I think actually has the potential to be one of the better D tackles in football. Yep. The way he plays with his strength. His combination of quickness and strength is rare for a guy his size. For a guy who's 315 pounds, he can play. He's going to be a nose tackle in the NFL probably. If he's on the Bears, he's going to be a one technique. But I think he could play some three technique too. He's got that quickness. When he plays the run, he stays square to the line of scrimmage. He never he always plays under control. He understands blocking angles and kind of where he needs to be on every play, and he's a damn good pass rusher for a guy his size. And so yeah, I mean, he's just my guy. I mean, this was probably. I mean, there were actually a lot of guys at D tackle that I really like, and I could have gone maybe a couple. I also really like Zach Pickens and Jalen Redmond, but if we're just going my guy Benton has to be it.
Yeah. You've been a Benton guy since at least we were doing this. Like I think he's the top 5 on my board as well. He's got a lot of nastiness to his game. His highlight plays are probably as good as anyone in the class. It's hard to not love him. I think I had a second round grade on him, or like that's kind of where I see him going. Fair. But
I think he is going to the second round. Jeremiah did have him at 28 in his mock.
Okay, there you go.
So, but that was the only mock I've ever seen him in the first round.
Hey, The it's the most recent. What have you done for me lately? NFL stands for not for
Exactly.
long. My guy,
All right, here you go.
Oro Ojimo,
Yeah, that
Texas.
is your guy.
Yeah, I love Moro Ojimo, man. Lots to
Yeah.
like. Crazy thing is he's played
Yes.
5 years of college and he's 21 years old.
That's crazy. I did not know that.
Let the math figure that one out. He's when every time he interviews, he seems like a good dude. He has this crazy thing where he like pulled his team aside and was telling them like when they were like having a down stretch in the season that they need to start playing like they're thinking about their second contract in the NFL, not some NIL money. And it was like, like just trying to get these guys focused on like every day getting better kind of stuff. And it's what you want to hear. And on top of that, like it's not Kalijah Kancey level tape, but he's got some really, really exciting stuff from the interior pass rushing position. Despite the fact that he's always kind of been better at at defending the run. This year was like the first year he kind of put it all together, and it was great. I mean, I think just like he plays a lot of snaps, and just like any other defensive tackle, he took some plays off, and he could look lackadaisical at times. But I think if he gets into a rotation, I would love it to be the Bears, but I could imagine how nasty it would be if it was someone like the Eagles. He would be an absolute. He's gonna be a stud.
Yeah, that's a really good one. That's a really good one. You've been on him for a while, and I agree. I also really like him too. Like he'd be a perfect day three technique that you can draft. Like if you don't get Jalen Carter the first, he'd be perfect just for the Bears. I did not realize he was so young because I think I saw that he was like 5 years in college and just kind of assumed he was 24.
Yeah, I don't know how he was taking snaps when he was 16, but he played like he's a red shirt senior that's only 21. He's like you watch out. As long as he's not asked to do the brunt of it, if he can be part of a rotation, I think he could legit be like a 6 to 8 like sack rookie guy.
Yeah, I think so too. I like him a lot. That's a really good one. A lot of this D tackle class I actually really like. I think it's really deep.
Unlike the edge class where I feel like there are a lot of guys that play pretty similarly, there's a whole different, like all of these guys are so different. Like more like Siaki Ika is so different from Keanu Benton, who's so different from Brian Bresee, who's so different from Mozzie Smith, who's so different from Kalijah Kancey, who's so different from Jalen Carter.
There are so many guys. All right, I think that's all the position. I don't know unless you wanted to do. Well, I think we're good. We're already over an hour. But so I think that's it for the day. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks everyone for commenting. We will be going live during the NFL draft on day 2, not day 1. So tomorrow we're not going to be doing anything, but day 2 we will be going live. We haven't really planned that out too much, but I'm sure we'll go live probably right at the start or maybe a little bit before. And we'll talk about kind of who's the best available players, who kind of what we expect. Hopefully the Bears have what happened the day before. Yeah, I guess we can talk about that too. So that'll be fun. So we'll do that. And then on day 3, we're not doing one, but I will be on the Irish Bears Show podcast. So make sure to tune in.
I did that last year. That's a marathon that day 3, just grinding through the rounds.
Yep. So that'll be exciting too. So keep an eye out for both those links. I'll tweet those out. In the meantime, bear down, everyone. And next time we talk, we'll have a new
Chicago
Bear tackle. Hopefully.
Yes,
All right, we'll see. All right, bear down, everyone.